Hello and welcome along to Susty Talk, Edie's series of video interviews with sustainability leaders designed to keep you feeling connected throughout lockdown, however many lockdowns there are, and beyond. I'm really delighted to have Duncan Burt from National Grid Group on the line today. He is their director for COP26, so hoping to have a good look at the year ahead for the UK's energy sector. Thank you so much for your time, Duncan.
Hi, no, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. And where are you dialing in from today? Where in the world do I find you?
Just north of Oxford in the Cotswolds. So lucky to be in the country for lockdown, which is nice.
Yes, for sure. So let's get straight into it. Obviously, as COP26 director, I know is a fairly new role for the group. So I wanted to get started on that. So could you tell us a bit about how you became to be director of COP at the organisation and a bit about what that role actually involves?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, until last year, I was our operations director. So I was running the electricity and gas networks day to day. And you might think, what on earth is an operations director going and doing a sort of external PR type role? But it's not. When we restructured and sort of split the ESO out fully on its own within National Grid, my role disappeared, and I was keen to do something new, and our chief exec suggested that I would find this a lot of fun, and indeed I would. I've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years really advocating that we could go fast at decarbonisation of the power sector. I love the amazing and interesting range of companies and organisations that are growing up in the UK around that, from electrification of vehicles and charging to smart storage and digital and everything in between. And there's a huge opportunity now with COP26 for us to drive awareness in the UK. I mean, COP26 is like the Olympics of climate change. So if we can use this moment both to encourage, in our own little bit, encourage the rest of the power grids around the world to do their bit in decarbonising, and we can engage Britain as a whole in decarbonisation, then what a great opportunity for us all.
Well, my next question was actually going to be about the opportunities of the conference. But aside from this, I've heard it described as like a crescendo of interest. But aside from this communications piece, what other opportunities are you seeing? I know that National Grid is a principal partner of this conference specifically.
Yeah, that's right. So we were asked by government if we want to join in as a principal partner. It's somewhere between a sponsorship and a partnership, and we were really keen. We see it as a big opportunity and for National Grid. We're one of the largest investor-owned utilities in the world. We're big operations in the UK, which has been the fastest decarbonising economy in the G20 over the last 20 years. So a fantastic postcard for what is achievable. And we wanted to help spread that message to the UK as a whole, as I said, to the general public, and to celebrate what's happened, and also to play our part in telling that story in the US, where we have significant operations in the Northeast, but also help where we could tell that story more broadly, the technical story, the engineering story, and also the wider story in terms of the opportunity and that decarbonisation presents. And it's a huge opportunity. I think I could walk around all year going, decarbonisation equals jobs. Basically, we did a study last year highlighting that we would need 400,000 new jobs to help deliver a net zero power sector, an energy sector, and that is magnified across the tremendous opportunities that are presented by huge developments in offshore wind, by huge growth in electric vehicles, and by the need to re-engineer our homes with energy efficiency and low carbon heating. It's an economic opportunity for the UK, and it's an economic opportunity that we can then export around the world. So why wouldn't we embrace it and chase it?
Well, it's pretty clear that you have a grasp of the opportunities, and you're really keen to make sure that they are achieved. But obviously, they're not guaranteed. We're not just going to walk straight into them. And as much as there is a storytelling piece here, you won't have a story to tell without the things happening on the ground that create those results. So what are the priorities for things that need to happen this year? So from yourselves or perhaps your wider industry partners that you've mentioned, and obviously COP26 is a big policy engagement moment as well.
Yeah, it is. And I think, to your point, Britain's come a long way in the last 10 years in terms of decarbonisation. In the last 5 years, we've seen huge reductions in coal. And if you mirrored those reductions globally, you would get a long way towards the 2030 climate targets for the whole world, because coal is so carbon intensive in terms of its pollution and mainly used in the power sector. We are in the UK now over 5,000 hours coal free in 2020, up from 600 hours in 2017. So a huge increase, more than half the year now. But what we need to do is, we've got a strong policy year, we hope, for the UK off the back of the white paper, which will set, and the UK needs to take that opportunity and set a tone internationally, because we need to be a credible partner and a credible host for COP26 in what we're doing here. And we can also help advocate that right around the world for all of those other economies that are working hard and looking at their plans, whether that's Japan and the US and China, or whether that's the coal intensive countries of Southeast Asia, the Indias, the Indonesias of this world, vast economies, huge development opportunity in terms of renewable and low carbon energy. And we think that both acting as a credible host by delivering those policy changes in the UK, and then really working in a collaborative way with dialogues internationally can help secure both a really short-term victory for the UK in terms of keeping that pace of decarbonisation up, and a long-term victory for the whole globe.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really handy look at like the macro level. But what about the priorities for yourselves? And specifically, I'd like to hear about, you've talked about the pace of decarbonisation over a period of time. A year that is always raised is 1990, but people will want to know sort of what's been going on in the very unique backdrop that is 2020 and 2021 so far, and how has that informed your priorities for this year?
Yeah, great question. So for this year, our priorities are to really help make those decisions about building back better as we come out of what's been a hugely challenging year. We all need a break in terms of, and an opportunity to look at, and the economy needs some real stimulus, and focusing that on the growth of, in the UK, offshore wind, the development of the networks that go with that, the development of the interconnectors that will bring the flexibility to the UK market, which will help manage that big increase in renewables, and the growth in networks and the charging infrastructure to support electric vehicles, are all really, really key. And if alongside that we can set a really clear direction for buildings and for heating in the long term, and do things such as extend the Green Deal, push more and more activity into the decarbonisation of buildings, then we will stand ourselves in very good stead to have a very green recovery, and to be creating the kind of jobs, investment and stimulus that we want to see in the UK over the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm. I will admit that I refresh my email inbox every morning, hoping that the heat and building strategy might be there. So many questions that could be answered, and we're still waiting for it. And then I wanted to come on to, so we've talked a lot about the opportunities, as you've mentioned, and about some of the infrastructure, but something we hear a lot is we want to hear about specific case studies. We want some projects, We want some success stories. So could you tell us about some of the exciting projects that you have in the pipeline in perhaps some of the sectors that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, I think it's the coldest day in the last 30 years today, isn't it? It's -20 in Scotland, but out in the North Sea, there's a lot of work going on surveying and then installing cables in 2 big new interconnector projects. The first one, well, we've just completed a second French interconnector that lands just near the Isle of Wight and is now supplying power into the UK. That happened and completed during COVID, which is fantastic. We've got a new Norwegian interconnector coming operational towards the end of this year, the end of 2021, and then fully operational probably next year, I think. And we're surveying and reviewing routes for a new interconnector to Denmark as well, that will come online over the next few years. Second big challenge there for us is looking at the network upgrades and all of the changes in policy, planning and regulation that are needed to deliver the vast target of 40 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. It really is. It's an incredible figure to have as government policy, and it's an incredible task that thousands of people are going to be involved in over the next 10 years to get there. But there's a lot of work in the background on the needs for regulation and the needs for planning policy to make sure that that works, and the need for joined up coordination right across the industry to make sure that we can deliver from National Grid the onshore network that's needed to do that, and look at the integration of some of the offshore network as well. We've got, you'd expect me to say, a big hydrogen project coming on later this year, which is looking at 12.7 million we're spending looking at how we use decommissioned steel pipes for the transport of hydrogen, which then is really going to give us one of the main technological keys to look at then either hydrogen into homes or hydrogen for industry, and the reuse of the gas network as fossil fuels come off, and we expect hydrogen come on to replace a number of different areas of use there. And I could keep going. I think the final thing I'd say is that we're continuing a lot of the hard work we've done with Graham Cooper, leading that from National Grid on electric vehicle charging networks, and the need for those charging networks to grow early and significantly ahead of what we think is going to be a real kick-off in demand. And one of the big impacts of COVID has been that huge growth in electric vehicles as a proportion of cars purchased. We've seen that especially in Norway, but we've also seen it in the UK. So we will keep pushing on the need for that growth and the role that we can play in helping that happen.
Fantastic. Well, Duncan, I'm sure we'll catch up many times before COP26, but for now I know you're a super, and so you so thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Claire. Nice to talk to you.
And you, and for everyone listening, a reminder that this is not the only Susty Talk. We've been running these every week for something like a year now, and you can find all of those videos on the edie website, edie.net, and on the edie YouTube channel, and stay tuned for the coming episodes. But for now, it's a goodbye from Duncan and a goodbye from myself. Goodbye.
Goodbye.